Do you ever have that ADHD day where you are just off? If you wake up that morning and it just feels like something's not quite right, you are not alone. In fact, we all get it. There's two reasons. They're called dopamine and norepinephrine. Dopamine, that is the messenger in the brain that makes us feel good. And norepinephrine is the fancy term for the brain messenger that helps us concentrate. When those are off, well, we feel off. In fact, that's the very reason we feel off. It's not technically us. It's messengers that we're short-staffed on. Well, there's just not enough of them. And so how do we approach this, and why does it happen? Well, the why can range anywhere from for no particular good reason at all. It's just kind of a cycle and that's where you're at. Or there can be specific triggers. And so in my case, I do think there was a specific trigger. It doesn't always have to be a trigger that starts this. I just woke up and I did not feel okay to hit the world. And I don't think it was just the normal Monday morning blues. It was like, that was my off day. Like, we can't change the triggers. They're going to happen. But what we can do is we can change our reaction and how we can get to the point where we feel functional without having the tantrum or the meltdown or the blow up. We need to recognize what our triggers are. That's easy to say out loud, but it takes a little bit of observation and it takes a bit of deliberate planning. So how do we do that? Well, instead of deploying the algorithm, like the tantrum algorithm to that, I thought I've actually learned, I was like, well, okay, the tantrum is one of the options. So what would maybe the exact opposite, like actually really trying to calm myself? And, the answer is, well, yes. And you're like, oh my gosh, Rob, that seems way too easy to work. I can confirm, in fact, that it is easy once you figure it out. It's easy to deploy when you recognize why you are starting to feel this way. Your body's probably used to going into tantrum mode because that's what's worked before. And, well, that's the thing that we're trying to change. And so when I first started thinking about, okay, well, what can I do to try to self-soothe? There are a lot of great things that we can do to self-soothe. There are a lot of other not so great things we can do to self-soothe. Unfortunately, a lot of people with ADHD have alcohol overuse disorders and also drug overuse disorders because when mentally, things are feeling like if your brain is a computer internet browser, all of a sudden you've got 5 billion. Yeah, it's really uncomfortable. And so in that moment, you're not really trying to think, okay, how can I calm myself down? It's something that you got to do beforehand. So what you can do is recognize, okay, things are starting to take off. I can kind of tell that I'm going to be dysregulated. What we can do is just find a way to reset this without having the tantrum. What you do, comments. I'd love to hear it because it doesn't always work. Like, that is one thing you just have to give yourself some compassion for, is that you can recognize, you can deploy your normal go-to new strategies to try to soothe, calm down, in that moment where you're just not feeling regulated, but it works more often than it doesn't. That's kind of expect at least an effort from yourself. So I know that sounds hard because the last thing you want to do when you're already worn out is try a little harder, but it's kind of like that sliver analogy. When you go to take a sliver out, kind of hurts a little bit more for a second to get it out, but once it's out, it feels so much better. We can do the same thing with our physical, emotional, and mental regulation when things are just off with ADHD. So the reset that one of the go-tos that really works for me is I was like, well, okay, what's the opposite of a tantrum? What's the opposite of freaking out? And I'm like, well, okay, how about a massage? I've gotten those before. They're amazing. It's quiet. It's dark. They're playing really nice, relaxing music in the background. For those of you with ADHD that have not discovered binaural beats yet, please discover them. It is a really cool way to brain down. It's essentially, that's what the music that you hear at a massage therapy office. What's cool is you have all these tones that they play and your brain actually hears a third one in the middle, which is actually kind of cool. It's not actually there. Your brain just averages these two and kind of makes it there. But what's cool is that just that act of making your brain do something, but is also a very calming something, that really helps to reset and regenerate. So if you've got earbuds, let's say you're at work and you're starting to spin out, that's really an inconvenient time for this to happen, or at school, that's not convenient. But rather than have the freak out and the tantrum, which is a lot worse, it's more beneficial to maybe just put some earphones in, go hide in the bathroom or something, and just listen to the music for a few minutes if you can. That's one thing that seems to work pretty well for me in a pinch. We can all learn from each other. I look forward to seeing what you've got. For me, now that I understand ADHD and how to regulate it, it's a superpower. It is something that I am very glad I have now. In the past, it used to hold me back. If you do, please like and subscribe. You guys are the best.